Good afternoon, everybody. And as we say in Chicago, good morning, no matter what time it is. When we're at inspirational gatherings like this one, I want to take a moment just to recognize Allison and her spectacular sharing with us. She said something that struck me, and I think perhaps connects what she was talking about to what I'm going to talk with you about today. Allison said, just be there, right? You heard her say that. And my talk is also about just being there. I have spent a lifetime, really, since my years at Carleton, fighting for social justice. And the reason for that is that I believe that all people should just be there. Just be there at the decision-making table, in the voting booth, in the neighborhood organization, wherever it is, so that they can make a difference. I had the chance in this last year or so to write a book about this. It's called Every Day is Election Day, A Woman's Guide to Winning Any Office from the PTA to the White House. And when I started writing the book, my impetus was really those 18 million cracks in the glass ceiling in 2008. And I thought, well, there's been a lifetime of change for many of us, a lifetime of movement of women into leadership positions, into a place where women being presidential candidates or vice presidential candidates was almost a norm. And then I thought about it some more, and I realized it's time for us, those of us who have built that lifetime working for change, to share what we know, to share the frank and true stories of what we've experienced with the women who are coming up behind us. So I began writing the book, and as I thought about it coming here, to the point that Emily just made, I realized I was particularly pleased to have this chance to talk with you this week, because we are in this deplorable state right now, where those we have looked to for leadership, for political leadership, for taking care of us, have failed us, right? And my book is really, and my talk today, is really about a solution to that. And that solution, in my mind, is seeing more women in public office, whether it's elected, whether it's appointed, whether it's as heads of organizations. I think that that is a solution to the deplorable situation I think we find ourselves in. As I got into thinking about how to organize this book, I interviewed a number of people from around the country, from all kinds of families, all kinds of backgrounds, holding different kinds of positions. The book is composed of about 30 lessons or so for women who would be leaders. But as I sat down to write, I thought about, well, is there sort of a beginning here, what we should talk about, or what I should talk about in this book first? And I realized that I had jotted down, sort of on a side note, what I called 6 easy rules. And they're what I think are the beginning steps for women to take as they consider whether they want to be a part of this group of working together to be better leaders of our country, to solve the problems we need solved. So what I want to share with you today is these 6 easy rules you never want to forget. So they are in a certain kind of order intentionally, and I now will tell you why. The first interview I got to do was with an amazing woman. Her name is Alana Rovner. She is the first woman ever appointed to the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals in Chicago. There haven't been many women who've held that position in our history. Only since the 1930s has any woman been in that position. And Alana happens to be an old friend. She happens also to be a neighbor. And so I thought, well, I'm going to sit down with her and I'm going to talk with her. As it happens, she lives downstairs. She's a heroic figure. Her family escaped the Holocaust. She grew up here. She went to Bryn Mawr. She went to law school. And because she's somewhat older, she went through that period that so many women did of really fighting to be a lawyer and to be a public leader. But she prevailed. And so I said to Alana, as we were sitting at the breakfast table in her kitchen one morning, I said, well, how did you prevail? How did you keep going? How did you stay on this path? And Alana sort of stood up straighter in her chair and leaned forward. And she said, what you see here, you've got to have raw, pure desire. And I thought, well, gee whiz, this is not the kind of language you usually hear at the breakfast table, right? And so I stood up straighter in my chair, and I said, well, Alana, what do you really mean by that? And she said to me that, she said, Rebecca, you know how this works. You've been doing this a long time, too. You have a goal, you have a dream you want to realize, and you work hard every day. And what keeps you going when you're really slogging? It is that raw, pure desire, right? Fast forward about, 6 or 8 months, and I called Alana again, Judge Rovner, and I said I would like permission to use this quote. I mean, this quote was no small matter. This is powerful stuff coming from a federal judge. And she said to me again, sitting up real straight, Rebecca, it is that. I want every woman to know that. So as I thought about what Alana had said to me and the advice she wanted to share with all of us, she was talking about having that raw, pure desire in order to be able to maintain the work one has to do to keep on the path, to work hard every day to achieve and to prevail. And as I thought about what that actually means, I thought that it means you have to outwork the competition every day, because otherwise, how are you going to win? Now, it sounds simple on its face, easy rule to follow. As I thought about it further, I realized it wasn't. And I thought, well, what story can I share with my readers? And what story can I share with you today to make this point? And I remembered an article I'd read a few months previously in, of all places, Vogue magazine, which does a lot of profiles, actually, of women political leaders. And this one was of Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the congresswoman from Southern Florida, also the chair, elected chair of the Democratic National Committee, the first woman to ever be elected to that position. And in the article, she recounts her rise, beginning from the age of 22 as a legislative aide, becoming a state rep, then going on to Congress. And along the way, she got breast cancer. And so the reporter knew this, and the reporter said to the congresswoman, well, did you tell your colleagues this? So they would understand that maybe you couldn't do everything you needed to do. And she said, absolutely not. She said, my father, my mother, my husband, my parents, my good friends supported me, but I wanted to decide what I was capable of doing. I didn't want someone else saying to me, oh, Debbie, stay home. Oh, don't take that phone call. Oh, don't go to that meeting. I wanted to decide what I was capable of doing, because what I wanted to do and still want to do is to outwork the competition and win. So that is rule number 2. Now, in the context of competition in the public sphere, and in most contexts still these days, for women, most of the competition is men. Now, again, a sort of obvious statement, but think deeply, if you will, about the ramifications of that fact. In the political sphere, what it means is that men have had decades and generation after generation of learning the political playbook. Dads learn it from granddads and great-granddads, and then their sons learn it, and then their sons learn it. But women in America have only had the vote for less than 100 years and have, as I mentioned earlier, been in office in any significant number a lot less time. And so what we have is a situation in which there's a playbook, just as there is in football or rugby or whatever it is, and you need to learn it and follow it. So that boils down to this rule, which is you must be willing to win the same way men do. Now, when I thought about this one, and I thought about what had I heard from the women I interviewed, or what have I heard in my life of working with women leaders, I really thought the best story I could share with you is the story of Monica Banks. She is the Chancery Clerk of Oktibbeha County, Mississippi. Now, Oktibbeha County is in the eastern part of the state. Unlike in the western part, it is predominantly white. Monica is African American. She is the only African American to have ever won countywide office in that county, and she's done it 5 times. And when I interviewed Monica, I asked her, a woman who grew up in the segregated South, a woman who went to a high school that had been bombed the year before she started there, how she accomplished what she has. She told me this. She said that she was inspired by the civil rights leaders who were in her town. She then decided as a kid that she wanted to be involved. And as an adult, she joined the NAACP. She got involved in voter registration. She got involved in a lot of sort of community-based political activity. She helped people put street signs up, do all the things you do when you run for office. And after about a decade of doing this, she got a phone call. And that phone call was from a white woman in town, Amy Tuck. And Amy had decided that she wanted to run for state rep. And Amy was calling to say to Monica, would you please be my campaign manager? Now, I'm not sure this has ever happened, had ever happened before in the state of Mississippi. I'm not sure it's happened since. I don't think it happens a lot, period. But Monica had proven herself, and Amy wanted the person who knew the playbook best. And so the two of them came together. Monica ran the campaign. Amy did what she was told. And as Monica shared this story with me, she said to me, "Dadgummit, we beat him." And we beat him with their playbook. But when you, as a woman, seek public power or political office, it's not only the case that you have to know that playbook that everyone who seeks that office follows. If you are a woman, it's my belief that you must be willing to be with and for women. Now, what I mean by this is really twofold. The first is that you have a duty as you sit at that table to be a representative of your group, right? As a woman, I know this. From my experience, I know that. And the second duty you have is to then be a proponent of policies and legislative proposals and administrative rules that will advance the status of women and girls. Because we come back to what is the reason to seek that public power and that public face. It is to do good by other people. It is to solve problems, not to do what we are seeing today in D.C. I also think it's true that this is how women go the furthest, because women like men are really smart. All voters are smart, and it's not a matter of education. It is a matter of knowing what they need for their families to lead healthy and secure lives. And to the extent they need to look to public officials to help them achieve that, they will do that and hold those officials accountable. And so, if you are a woman in that office and you look the other way or ignore the particular concerns that women have, you are not with and for women. The voters will know that, and you will not be doing what you ought to be doing. So I say here that the best sort of example I can give you is from Shirley Chisholm, who ran for president. Some of you may remember this or read it in history books in 1972. And I was very fortunate. My husband actually gave me her autobiography at that time. It's called Unbought and Unbossed. And Chisholm lost, right? She lost in the Democratic primary, but she returned to Congress, mind you, the first African-American woman ever to serve in Congress. And look at what she did. She only hired women to staff her office. And that is because she knew that in the first place she had run for president to demonstrate that women too can lead and govern and make those big decisions. And that secondly, when the daily work of government is being done, women know how to do it, they can do it, they will do it, and in that work they will be with and for women. But, of course it's the case, as Chisholm learned, you don't win every time, right? So this brings me to this next rule, which is that winning is not a one-off. That you have to go back in front of the people, whether the voters who elected you or the decision makers who appointed you, and you have to say to them and prove to them that you ought to be in that position, right? So one of the people I interviewed for my book was Mary Landrieu, who is the U.S. Senator, senior U.S. Senator from Louisiana, notably in a Democrat in a state that's increasingly Republican. And Senator Landrieu and I were talking about this, and I said, well, you've been at this a long time. Like Debbie Wasserman Schultz, she started out in her 20s in the state legislature, moved up to executive office, and then to the Senate. And Mary really gave to me the title of my book. She said, every day is election day. People are sizing you up every day. And some of you might think, well, that's a bummer. I've been elected, I am somebody. I can sit behind the big desk and, in the big office. But her point was something completely different. She was glad people are sizing her up every day because she understands that this isn't a privilege to be in the U.S. Senate, except in this sort of, kind of moral sense. It's not a right. It is a duty. It's a duty to serve the people who elected you. And so this is this fifth rule. So what happens when you then, when you then are sitting behind that big desk? One of the things that you find out, maybe some of you have already found this out or will find it out soon, is that campaigning and governing are very different things. That when you're campaigning, you may say, well, gee, I want to do this, I want to do that, I promise you this, I promise you that. And what happens when you're then at that big desk? You find that it is not the case, that you can necessarily do everything on the timetable you wanted to do it on. You may not be able to do it at all, and you have to sort of take the measure of that. And, so people then, some people take the measure of it, and they compromise, and they compromise, and they compromise, and they compromise. They sink to the lowest common denominator. And again, I point us to what's happening today. That's a mistake. What is the thing to do, I think, is to follow this advice. This quote I've given you on the slide comes from Jan Schakowsky, who is also a member of Congress from Illinois. And Jan is a very forceful proponent, a very active person of a very serious and substantial agenda. But she now is serving in a Congress in which she's in the minority party in the House. And sometimes, she's a friend, I talked to her about this, sometimes it's really, really difficult. But what Jan says here is really the point, and this takes me to the way I want to finish this talk with you. She says that regardless of whether, regardless of those promises you made when you campaigned, regardless of what you find when you are elected, you have a duty to find a way to help people in need, right? And so that brings me to the conclusion here that it really coming back to the beginning, which is that the reason for this consideration by any of you in this room, I hope, of running for office, of being appointed to office, of being the head of a college or an advocacy organization or being a judge, is to serve people. And as I say in my book, whether you are a daughter of Mississippi, Manhattan, or Minnesota, one of your daughters I talk about is Amy Klobuchar, and she, like Jan Schakowsky, tries to find that way. Now, the thing about this is that you must remember that what we are experiencing now is not what you want to do, that what you want to do, wherever you come from, whatever office you serve in, however difficult it may be, is that what the founding fathers said to us in the Declaration of Independence, and that is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for everybody. Thank you.